Hi, I'm Silver Six, and today is the day we need to take some cattle to the auction. Now, I know what you're thinking. You'd like to keep them around as pets for the rest of your life, but you can't really do that. You got to make the money when you can. But you don't want to go to the auction without looking fairly good. Remember, you want to go to Walmart and get the most expensive pair of coveralls they have, preferably in black. That way nobody can see you. Second of all, you want to go in a good-looking vehicle. You don't want to take the old farm pickup. You got to look sharp when you go to the auction. When you get to the auction, you need to look like you know what you're doing. Don't go over there and walk in and slink in and kind of act like you don't know what's going on, even when they use terms like heifer and steer and all that. At least act like you know what you're talking about. You got to get up early and you got to make sure the cattle are in the corral before you go. Otherwise, you'll spend all morning chasing them around, you've got them exhausted, you got them tired, and then by the time you get them into the trailer, it's too late to go. So make sure you give yourself a day of preparation. Oh, and by the way, if you're using that old junkie corral, make sure the boards are nailed back up. You know, sometimes that stuff falls off and, you know, when you're trying to run away from the bull, it breaks and then you're done, son. I guarantee you that. Anyway, let's go to the... We're on the road. Now, one of the first things you'll always want to remember is to unravel your trailer's light cord before you plug it in. Because otherwise you'll pull all the wires loose and you won't have any tail lights. You know, that's the way it goes sometimes. But don't worry. I'm going to go to True Value and get the most expensive plug-in they got. I'll be fixed then. It's essential to have good tunes on your way to the cattle auction. You had a bad day! You gotta have tunes on your way to the cattle auction. I've got the best radio Sparkomatic makes. I'll tell you what, son. Out of 2 speakers, pretty good sound. Little Christopher Cross. Boy, they don't sing like that anymore. Unfortunately, old Chris wasn't the best looking guy, so when the MTV revolution came along, he was a victim. Yeah, poor old Chris didn't make the cut. Great singer. Not too good to look at. I like old Silver. Well, we made it to the auction. Gonna have to do a little shopping once I get here. While we're parked here and waiting to unload, people often ask me, Silver, why do you only drive Chevy pickups? Well, that's not always true. I've driven a few others. But as far as doing farm work, I'm pretty sold on Chevy. But I wouldn't have a problem driving another vehicle. Ford, Dodge, Chrysler, Honda, Hyundai, Toyota. I wouldn't have much of a problem driving anything else, as long as it had 2 things. Number 1, a 454 engine, and if they changed their name to Chevy, then I'd drive it. That's almost like having a 45 auto. Well, I'm on my way home from the cattle auction. Made a little bit of money, bought a little steer that it was only $45. Gonna have to put some meat on his bones because he's pretty skinny. But he just needs a good home, some tender loving care. We'll find a place for him on Silver Six Farm. Now that we're on our way home, this gives me a chance to tell you a story. You remember when I told you earlier about having a nice vehicle when you go to the cattle auction? Well, that's true, but you don't want to have one that's too nice. There's an old redneck legend about Garth Plegas the Rich. He had the nicest Chevy pickup in the county. He also had the nicest Dodge Dynasty in the county, too. But he often flaunted that, and when he went to the cattle auctions, people really didn't want to talk to him because he seemed kind of uppity, you know? He was always wanting to top everybody else. Well, bottom line is, after a few years, he ended up moving to Texas, where people are into that. Around here, though, we don't cotton to being too rich. So anyway, you don't want to have too much, but you don't want to have too little. Just keep that in mind when you go out to buy your new Chevy pickup. Well, now that we're on our our way home, it gives me a little time to tell you a little story. If you remember earlier, I said you want to go to the cattle auction in a nice vehicle. Well, you don't want to go in something too nice. That was the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I make those hypo boys nervous.